If you've ever seen an opportunity slip away, if you've ever wondered why others turn everything they touch into money while you don't, then this book is for you. Transforming Everything into Money by Nguyen and Dung will not only show you how to earn money, but also open your mind to seeing value in things that seem meaningless. Now, let's pause for a moment and listen. Transforming Everything into Money by Nguyen and Dung, the secret to escaping poverty and achieving true success and wealth. Forward. This may not be the first or only book you read about personal finance or how to create wealth, but I assure you it is a worthwhile read and one you should definitely pick up. There are countless ways to make money and countless mindsets for building wealth that you can learn. However, the crucial question is whether you can ultimately apply them successfully and generate results for yourself. Hundreds of people apply the same method, yet they achieve hundreds of different outcomes. This is obvious because each person is born with unique personality traits and ways of thinking. Each brain is a distinct creative machine, leading to different products. Only when we understand ourselves and find suitable methods and tools can we have a chance at success. Nevertheless, no matter how vast the differences between individuals, circumstances, spaces, times, geographies, nations, or regions, they do not lie outside the immutable principles and universal laws of nature and the common development of all humanity. By understanding and applying these universal laws, we will know how to transform everything into money and transform everything into what we desire. This book will give you more than just one way of thinking. It will help you perceive things from a higher, more comprehensive, and multidimensional perspective, so you no longer get bogged down in minor details that are not central to the problem at hand. I believe that with your boundless creativity, you will not only apply the excellent formulas in this book to generate unlimited financial resources, but also become a brilliant strategist with century-spanning strategies, contributing significantly to the common development of all humanity. Part 1. The aspiration to transform everything into money. The topic of money is quite sensitive. It appears in everyone's mind with different thoughts and emotions. Some feel excited and enthusiastic when talking about money because it is something most people desire and actively seek. Others are hesitant to discuss money, believing it to be materialistic, stirring greed within people. Still others find talking about money to be trivial, not noble. Some even believe money is a burdensome material thing that traps people in calculations, preventing true happiness. I believe all these thoughts and feelings are valid in some way, from each individual's perspective. Everyone has a different life and different living experiences. Different experiences with money mean they hold different beliefs and views about it, but we must admit that money is an indispensable tool in our lives. It helps society develop and become more civilized, and it enables us to realize our plans and bring ideas to fruition. However, this is only when we use money correctly and for the right purpose. Conversely, if misused, money can corrupt moral values, erode character, or lead to unforeseen consequences. But do we ever wonder why there are differences in people's experiences, perspectives, and abilities to manage money, even though money is essentially just a medium for buying and selling goods? The answer lies in differing mindsets about money. So, what is the right mindset about money, and how can money become the most useful tool in this life? Let's explore and analyze this together. Chapter 1. Do you truly understand money? Don't be surprised, laugh, or get angry when you hear this question, because many of us, though grown and working daily to earn money, still don't truly understand money and even misunderstand its nature. The proof is that most of us are controlled by money. We work hard 8 hours a day or more to earn enough money to live, to satisfy our own and our family's needs. Sometimes we sacrifice many things to possess that money. But then, when we acquire a large sum, we cannot manage it. And so, the money slips away and we continue to search. This vicious cycle repeats. That's why we struggle to find satisfaction or happiness from money. Definition of money. First, let's understand money in the simplest and clearest way through its definition. Money is a common, highly liquid equivalent used to exchange goods and services, and it is easily accepted. This means everyone is willing to use it, and it is usually issued by the state, guaranteeing its value. Money is a medium, a representation of material value, and a common standard to compare the value of goods and services. Money makes the exchange and transfer of goods or services easier and more convenient. Human history records many different forms of money, such as rare seashells, colorful bird feathers, shark teeth, and then gold coins. The material itself that made them had true material value, but there were also zinc coins and paper money, whose raw materials had no high intrinsic value. Thus, the value of money lies not in the material it's made from, but in society's recognition. A currency highly valued in one country can sometimes become worthless and difficult to circulate in another. Attitude towards money. When we understand money as an equivalent, we grasp that money has the power to convert the value of products or services we possess, but no longer need into products or services we need, but don't have, to satisfy our desires. Thus, whether we perceive money as noble, useful, good, or evil, inferior, or trivial depends on the characteristics we attribute to it based on the actions and intentions of its users and creators. The value of money might be the same, but if money is earned through sweat and labor, we feel it is truly precious. However, if money is acquired through dishonest or illegal actions, then that money becomes despicable. This attitude determines how you create money and also the amount of money you possess. Money, like all other material things in this universe, is inherently neutral. It is neither good nor bad. Its good or bad nature is simply attributed to it by the user. However, money carries an invisible energy. This is because money is created from sweat, effort, intellect, labor, sometimes blood, tears, and even the deepest human aspirations and hopes. Therefore, a person's attitude towards money will have a significant impact on their ability to acquire it. There's a folk tale about a young man who inherited his parents' wealth, making his business ventures very prosperous. One day, on his way home from work, he was asked to buy a lottery ticket. Seeing the boy selling tickets, he felt pity and bought one to support him. Unexpectedly, the lottery ticket he bought won the grand prize. Holding the money in his hand, in a moment of arrogance, he threw the stack of bills into the air, laughing heartily and saying, "I have no shortage of money. What use is this money to me?" Then he gleefully watched others scramble to pick up the scattered money on the ground. Strangely, not long after, his business began to encounter difficulties. One problem followed another, and before long he became bankrupt. He fell into debt and destitution, something he could never have imagined. Until the end of his life, he lived in poverty and misery. There are many other stories about the consequences of underestimating money and the value of labor, which encourage us to have a positive and respectful attitude towards money, even small change. Therefore, my best advice is to cherish the material values created by human effort, time, and intellect, and to cherish the resources of nature and creation. Sometimes, your attitude towards money is more important than the amount of money you have. So, to develop the right mindset about money, you first need to have the right attitude towards it. We will analyze this issue in more detail later in this chapter. The pressure of money. As society develops, the scale, speed, and volume of money circulation increase. This is partly due to specialization in production. People can no longer produce and meet all their essential needs themselves as they once did. It is also partly due to ever-increasing demands in life. Every day we strive to earn money to satisfy material needs and also to fulfill the feeling that money brings, security. But sometimes we forget that to obtain these desired things, we inadvertently lose priceless things we already possess: health, peace of mind, precious moments of happiness with family. And so, every day we rush out to sell our labor, time, and health for 8 hours or more, then convince ourselves that we are striving for a better future, that once we have enough money, we will stop working and enjoy life. But alas, among all those efforts and struggles out there, how many truly earn the amount of money they desire, or are they always in a state where their sweat dries up and the money is gone? Most of them find their worries growing with each passing year. Even if today's earnings are higher than yesterday's, material needs also increase. A bigger house, a nicer car, more luxurious pleasures. And so, money is never enough. People constantly chase the monetary spiral, unknowingly allowing the perception of money to become negative, believing money creates invisible pressure, becoming something evil, turning people into slaves of money without them even realizing it. Simply for the sake of earning money, for the pursuit of happiness, countless tragic and unfortunate lives unfold. A father, the pillar of his family, risked dangers to earn more income by taking on a hazardous hourly job. In the morning, he left his home with affectionate hugs and kisses on his beloved child's cheek, hoping for the money he would bring home in the evening. Yet, the dangers of his profession robbed him of the chance to return, stealing both his child's childhood and future. Another person, wanting to make a fortune to change their life, recklessly stepped onto a path of crime, violating the law only to lose their freedom for the rest of their life. There are also those who are willing to commit heinous acts to extort money and property from others. Do we ever stop and ask how to enjoy a happy life every single moment while still generating money through our passions? That seems like a distant dream for many. Because every day they still struggle with the anxieties of making a living, ensuring their most basic needs. How can they find time for passions and dreams that remain unfinished and gradually forgotten over the years? Each of us is born with a unique mission, a distinct role in this society. Fundamentally, we all share common human characteristics and need similar environments and living conditions. But one thing is certain: 8 billion people in the world means 8 billion different life stories. No two are alike. Everyone experiences and perceives life in different ways. Yet all of us are striving towards common good values that all humans desire to satisfy, such as family, health, love, financial stability, career development, intellectual growth, beautiful relationships, and a noble soul. These things can manifest as different desires and criteria for each person. For example, regarding love, some desire happiness in romantic relationships, some carry love for their homeland, and others love nature and life. Some wish to dedicate their love entirely to art, while others love all living things. Every day, we strive to fulfill our desired values, and we understand that the means to achieve these things is money. In modern society, almost everything can be bought with money, yet it is incredibly difficult to generate money. Gradually, we come to believe that our biggest goal is money, and we pursue it by any means necessary, forgetting other values. And at the end of that journey, countless people realize they have never found peace of mind or happiness in their relationships. Let's return to the concept of money. Money is an equivalent that helps us exchange products, goods, or services collectively called products that we possess but temporarily don't need or no longer need in order to acquire what we lack. Our products will be converted into a sum of money corresponding to their value. We then use that money to buy the products we need to satisfy our desires. In other words, each person's product reflects their value. A good product will yield more money. They will be able to buy more products from others and still have money left over. Conversely, a low-value product will yield less money, and they will be able to buy fewer products from others. They will lack material things to satisfy their basic needs. Let's look closely at the product, value, and life of each person. All of us living in society are selling something, collectively referred to as products, things we own, create, or make. This product is packaged with our various resources and efforts, which could be our time, health, intellect, talent, or skills. For example, workers sell their health, time, and skills for income. Artists sell their talent and passion for a corresponding sum of money. A CEO sells their management, leadership, and sales skills to generate revenue for the company. The money they receive is called salary, wages, fees, or profit. Whatever it is essentially the fruit of their labor, their income, and that money is used for each person's different purposes. However, over the same period, each person's income differs because their value differs. An hour of work by an inventive engineer will differ from an hour of work by an ordinary laborer. A month's income for the chairman of a large corporation will differ from that of an engineer in a small company. Intelligent people focus on developing their self-worth to reduce working time and effort while still creating significant value for the community, thereby generating more money. Conversely, those who only try to increase their time and effort to improve income will not achieve much breakthrough in that change. This is why there is a widening gap between rich and poor in society, with the rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer. Here's an interesting fable. A lumberjack went to a sawmill owner to ask for a job. The owner hired him immediately because he was strong, diligent, and eager. He hoisted his axe onto his shoulder and went into the forest to chop wood. He worked very hard and enthusiastically to repay the owner's kindness. On the first day, he brought back quite a lot of wood, which greatly pleased the owner, who patted his shoulder and encouraged him. "Well done, young man, keep up the good work." In the following days, he continued to work hard and passionately. Moreover, the amount of wood he chopped increased each day. However, by the 5th day, he was still working diligently from morning till night, but the amount of wood collected was less. On the 6th and 7th days, he continued to work even harder, hoping to bring back much wood for a deserved wage. But sadly, the amount of wood he chopped was even less than on the first day. He sought out the owner and regretfully explained, "I don't understand what happened. Perhaps I've lost my strength, sir." The sawmill owner looked at him and his chipped axe for a long time, then calmly asked, "When was the last time you sharpened your axe?" The young man exclaimed, "Sharpen my axe? I didn't even take a minute's rest, let alone sharpen my axe. I spent all my time chopping trees." The owner replied, "Well, that's exactly why, young man." This story inspired a famous quote by U.S. President Abraham Lincoln. "If I had 6 hours to chop down a tree, I'd spend the first 4 sharpening my axe." It's evident that things most people have or can easily create, like time and health, do not command high monetary value. Conversely, things most people lack or cannot create but desperately need, such as solutions for health and finance, command very high monetary value. What's even more noteworthy is that common things like time and health are finite for the owner and are priceless, yet they sell for a low price. Meanwhile, things that sell for a high price are often infinite and can be exploited forever. So why don't we choose to use finite things to create infinite things, preserving the priceless to harness that which holds value? Let's broaden our perspective to the world. We will see that the rich-poor divide exists not only within small communities or small nations, but globally. Developed nations daily purchase the time, labor, and resources of developing nations at cheap prices, then sell them back products and services created by those very same efforts and resources at exorbitant prices. Developed nations even create massive debts through economic contracts or legalized traps to shackle those who generate profits for them every day. They build factories, produce, create waste, and destroy the living environment right where they exploit resources. They only bring the product results money back to their own nations. The question then arises, are the intellectual products, time, effort, and resources of people in developing countries truly that low in value? Absolutely not. These are things of very high value and are indeed priceless to their people and nations. It's just that they have endured the sufferings of war. They are struggling to recover, grappling with the pain of daily sustenance to meet essential needs. They are economically dependent. They can only see the immediate horizon, unable to expand their vision. They haven't truly understood the nature and laws of money. They haven't focused on developing value, but only on exploiting time and effort. Sadly, they are strenuously chopping down a forest with a dull axe. If they don't realize this soon, they will not only fail to cut down many trees, but also incur profound physical and mental damage in the not-too-distant future. Only when they understand that focusing on value will not only reduce effort, save time, create more value for sustainable economic development, but also elevate them to an equal footing with all others, preventing any military, economic, or cultural war from bringing them down again. On another level, we need to clearly understand the nature of money based on its significance to society and human life. Money basically consists of 2 types, living money and dead money. Living money is money that can increase in value, circulates continuously, generates positive real returns, and multiplies into new money. We may not see it, but it always operates as a system, and sometimes it is understood as the cause of money generation or the flow of money, also known as cash flow. Living money may not create material wealth, but it generates the financial freedom that many people dream of. This is the positive difference between passive income and monthly expenses. Dead money, conversely, means that after it is used, it loses its value or fails to retain its value. It cannot grow and continue to generate new money. We will discuss these concepts in more detail later in the book. We cannot deny that money is a means to support our lives, and we are allowed to use it as we wish when it is in our possession and because we earned it. However, we must know how to use money wisely so that it does not become dead money or meaningful dead money merely used innocently. Dead money is often tangible. We can see it, hold it, count it, use it, and derive pleasure from possessing it. Hence, most of us want to own as much of it as possible. We work hard every day, accumulating it daily to create wealth, feeling proud of our riches and secure in that financial cushion. But that very financial cushion can sometimes become a danger, creating unease and anxiety for the owner. An economic or political upheaval can cause that wealth to lose much of its value or even freeze. Although wealthy and possessing many valuable assets, many people still lack financial freedom because they view money as property and wealth as owning many assets. Conversely, those pursuing financial freedom view money as a commodity and making money as a game. They may not own many assets, but they consistently generate steady, automatic cash flows. They can create money from anything, anywhere, and under any circumstances. Setbacks do not affect them, they even create more opportunities for them. Therefore, instead of focusing on owning dead money, focus on investing in the causes that generate money. An automatically flowing cash stream sufficient to create financial freedom, bringing you ease and tranquility, will surely be better than a massive fortune that creates an invisible pressure to maintain and protect, leaving you exhausted every day. After all, assets are not something that stays with you forever, but freedom is something everyone pursues and brings true happiness in every moment. Learn how to transform everything into money to ensure your ability to create financial freedom anytime, anywhere, and under any circumstances. In any area of life, you can only become a winner when you truly understand what you're doing. The same applies to making money. If you don't truly understand money, can you control the money you earn? Can you make money work for you to gain freedom, or will you continue to work every day, even at tasks you dislike, just to acquire a certain sum? To free your body, start by freeing your mind. To act correctly, you must think correctly. In short, everything must begin with our thoughts. If you want financial freedom, you must first have the right mindset about finance. If you don't even truly understand the concept of money, you cannot create it as easily as you wish. If you are fortunate enough to possess money, you will eventually quickly turn that money into dead money or even money that exists meaninglessly. Start with the right mindset about money. If you don't have the right mindset about money yet, start by asking questions to find answers. That is the way to create the most effective guiding paths. And start anytime, because every moment is suitable for a new beginning. You create value, and value will create money for you. Asterisk Chapter 2. Why do you always struggle to make money? The first answer for you is, because you are focusing too much on earning money, meaning you are seeking it wherever you find it. When one source runs out, you move to another. You use your finite strength and time to hunt and gather, just like primitive people, accumulating them into colossal fortunes to possess. And countless people today are hunting and gathering for money in this way every day. When resources run dry, when making money becomes more difficult, they scramble, fight, and compete, creating the fierce struggle we often see. Meanwhile, these accumulated assets remain static, not circulating to create harmony and balance in society, thus escalating social conflicts. Day by day, earning money becomes harder, and every day we struggle with the worries of making a living. The second answer for you is, because you do not yet understand the invisible energy within the money you possess. Therefore, your attitude towards money is not truly correct. Remember that money is inherently inanimate, yet it comes into contact with humans most frequently and intensely, often during heightened emotional states, thus consuming a great deal of energy. When you have an incorrect attitude towards money, it means you are emitting a corresponding frequency, and according to the law of attraction, you will receive a corresponding financial situation. Perhaps at this point, you need more concrete and convincing evidence. In reality, not only money, an inanimate object, has emotions, but other physical objects do too. For instance, a tree, a stone, a jar of rice, a drop of water all have the ability to absorb human emotions. For example, in a small experiment with two identical green potted plants, cared for with the same nutrition and light, the only difference was the daily reception of words and emotions. The first plant received loving words and positive emotions from humans. The second plant received contempt, criticism, and hatred. After a month, the first plant grew green, healthy, and normal, while the second withered and died. A similar experiment with 2 jars of white rice showed that the first jar grew pure white, beautiful mold, and spoiled more slowly, while the second jar grew ugly black and gray mold and spoiled quickly. Many other experiments also demonstrate the absorption of emotions by inanimate objects. Our usual attitude towards money is one of cherishing and pride, but certainly there are times when we show a lack of respect. For example, we might carelessly toss small denomination coins aside, or we might disrespect the money earned by people we dislike. We envy the wealthy, we feel deprived and crave money, we feel it's difficult to make money. All these emotions create corresponding frequencies of attraction. Therefore, we should have a positive and correct attitude towards money. The third answer for you is, because we are doing it the wrong way. We are focusing on the process of making money without paying attention to the asterisk cause asterisk of money creation. It's like we are striving to draw water from a stagnant pond, which will eventually run dry. Just like the hunting and gathering mentioned earlier, we only seek to pick what is readily available without bothering to cultivate new crops for future harvests. In nature, all species and objects are governed by the law of cause and effect. Everything that is born, disappears, occurs, or moves at any given moment is the result of one or a series of previous causes. From the Earth revolving around the sun creating day and night, to the tides caused by the moon's gravitational pull, or the winds generated by air convection, to the fragrant flowers and sweet fruits born from the growth process of a plant. Even a beautiful butterfly is born from an ugly caterpillar. All these, though different, are intimately linked by cause and effect. These natural laws influence and create corresponding laws in human society, which we call social laws. A law is something that occurs independently of our consciousness. We can only abide by and apply it. We absolutely cannot change it according to our will. The creation of wealth is no different. It operates based on many social laws within the realm of economics, such as the law of value, the law of supply and demand, the law of competition, the law of monetary circulation, and many other laws. When we face difficulties in making money, it also means that we are applying laws incorrectly, or we do not know or understand them clearly. If we try to change our methods to achieve a goal without understanding the root cause of the problem, all our efforts will be in vain. Instead, focusing on the cause and finding solutions based on applying these laws will help us easily achieve what we desire. Correctly applying these laws not only helps us solve financial problems, but also issues in other areas of life. Let's return to the difficulties of making money. Let's seriously reconsider the way we live every day. Is it true that your daily concern is how to improve and increase your monthly income? And when your income increases, do you think about increasing your needs accordingly? Such as treating yourself to a more expensive outfit, buying a more luxurious car, or a bigger house. And so, every day you want to find ways to increase income to satisfy unlimited needs. And thus, you constantly feel invisible pressures weighing heavily on you. Have you ever asked yourself what the ultimate purpose of satisfying those needs is? Is it truly that you are seeking moments of satisfaction and joy from fulfilling your desires? Indeed, it is exactly that. That is the feeling of freedom. So why don't we focus on seeking freedom, specifically financial freedom, and finding ways to achieve financial freedom instead of the feeling of possession? When you set the specific goal of achieving financial freedom, the way you pursue it will be different from pursuing the goal of increasing income. Recall the last time you wanted to increase your income. Did you achieve it by increasing your working hours, exerting more effort, or taking on a more difficult job to earn the desired pay and income? We understand that increasing our self-worth or skills will help us reduce time and effort in everything. However, increasing self-worth is not a one-day or two-day task. It requires persistent effort and strong determination over a specific period, similar to planting a tree and waiting to harvest its fruit. Therefore, not many people choose and follow this path. The vast majority use readily available resources, their time, and health to achieve immediate results. So, how can we increase our self-worth? How can we develop the ability to transform everything into money in the smartest and most effective way? The story below may offer you a comprehensive picture of creating cash flow, giving you more inspiration to explore the interesting methods in the latter part of the book. The story of Pablo and Bruno ***. Pablo and Bruno were two young friends who grew up together. They weren't afraid of hard work and were always looking for opportunities to fulfill their dreams, and an opportunity eventually presented itself. The village they lived in drew its water from a stream on a high mountain for its daily life. Every day, the villagers had to take turns carrying water back. The village elder decided to hire two strong young men to carry water daily. They would be paid proportionally to the amount of water they brought back to the village, and the chosen ones were Pablo and Bruno. Both young men were very enthusiastic and immediately started the work. They carried water continuously from morning till night. Bruno felt satisfied with the money he earned. He believed that with this job, he could earn a decent amount of money, enough to get what he wanted and to increase his income. He used larger buckets and increased the amount of water for each trip. He planned to buy a house and a cow with the money he earned. Pablo, however, felt very tired after each day's work, even though the money he received was not small. So he thought of a way to bring back more water without having to work strenuously every day. He discussed with Bruno the idea of building a pipeline system to bring water to the village and wanted both of them to work together and share the rewards. But Bruno thought it was a crazy idea. He believed that with the time spent building the pipeline, he could carry much more water and earn a lot more money. He rejected the proposal, and of course, Pablo never gave up on that idea. He decided to implement the plan alone. Every day, Pablo still carried water for a fixed period to earn an income to sustain his life. The remaining time he dedicated to building a long-term project, which required a lot of time because he understood it would take a great deal of effort. He ignored all the villagers' mocking remarks and Bruno's jibes. After a while, Bruno's income increased significantly. He had acquired the house and the cow he dreamed of. However, his health visibly declined. He looked older and became increasingly exhausted with each bucket of water brought back to the village. The amount of water he could carry also decreased as a result. Meanwhile, Pablo continued his work. The money he earned did not increase much for a while until he completed his water pipeline system. When the system began to operate steadily, the money he earned suddenly skyrocketed with every minute of water flow. At this point, Pablo no longer needed to carry water every day, but the money he earned was more than ever and never stopped, as long as he ensured the water flowed well through the pipeline. In reality, the majority of people in life are like Bruno, while those like Pablo represent a very small fraction. Even on a broader scale, Bruno's mindset permeates entire nations. I carry within me the aspiration to create these money flows. Transforming everything into money is not an aspiration to serve personal gain, but rather to elevate the nation, the country, and the people to a new height, using the very blessings that creation has bestowed upon the nation to serve the interests of one's nation and people. All individuals, all nations deserve this. And as you know, if Bruno had thought like Pablo and worked together to build the pipeline, that task would surely have been easier and faster than ever before. Both would have shared in the rewards. Let each of us be a Pablo, right from our thoughts. One way or another, as long as we don't give up, we will reap the sweet fruits of success. Part 2. Transforming everything into money. Money and resources in the universe are infinite. Only our time and health are finite. Chapter 1. Start with anything. Each of us is born and grows up in a different geographical region that we cannot choose. We can only choose how we live when we have enough capacity to perceive this world. Therefore, instead of comparing development conditions and blaming circumstances, let's understand circumstances to choose a suitable development path for ourselves. Throughout history, everywhere in every field, there have been extraordinary individuals who stand out from the majority. They are exceptional because they create achievements and superior values that others cannot, within similar cultural, economic, social, and geographical contexts. When we learn from them to succeed, it doesn't mean we must possess all the same factors they had, but rather we learn their way of thinking, how to master all situations and circumstances to transform what we have into our own achievements. Therefore, Start with anything you have at any time you can. But before you begin, remember that success in preparation is preparing for success. Equip yourself with the necessary and sufficient factors to create your own success. Let's agree that everything we do, all our successes, originate from our thoughts. How we think determines how we act, and how we act determines the results we achieve. The right mindset will produce the right results, and vice versa. Therefore, let's start with these concepts, as they reflect our level of awareness and thinking about what we pursue. Our understanding dictates our reach. We will find difficulty with anything we don't clearly understand. For example, you will struggle with typing if you don't understand the rules of operating a typewriter. You will find it difficult to drive a car if you have never learned to drive, and you will find it difficult to make money if you have never seriously studied to understand money. Embrace the good news that making money can be learned, just like any other skill, any other subject. To access in-depth knowledge, you must grasp the most basic knowledge, which is concepts. Then, you must understand principles, laws, methods, approaches, and even the smallest details. Let's start with the simplest concepts, and these are the concepts within the scope of this book. Because out there, you can find countless other concepts, other methods to turn something into money. These are different pieces in a comprehensive picture that you should seek out. Money in this book is understood as the financial goal you are aiming for. It might not be a specific sum of money, a massive stagnant fortune, but rather a state of complete financial freedom or financial autonomy in any situation, or a legacy, a perpetual passive income stream that you leave for many generations to come. And we should understand the nature and levels of money to choose the financial goal we want to aim for before learning how to achieve that goal. As we know, money itself is not an asset, but it represents assets through societal conventions. Money is a means to exchange goods, value assets, and in the future, money will also be a type of commodity. If we do not clearly understand the nature of money, we can make very big mistakes, such as turning our assets into liabilities, investing in liabilities while neglecting true assets. Asterisk Chapter 2, 5 Levels of Money. 1. Dead money. 2. Existing money. 3. Living money. 4. Meaningful money. 5. Right money. Asterisk 1. Dead money. Dead money is the amount of money that, after being used, creates a liability or no longer holds any value. To sustain daily life, we must use a lot of dead money. For example, a house, a car, or any item we buy for personal use. The money we spend to purchase them does not continue to generate other money. It may even necessitate spending more money. A house, even if we buy it for a very large sum, very spacious with many rooms, but in reality we only use a very small area for living, then the money paid for the remaining area becomes meaningless and wasteful. It is dead money. Or a car, if it only serves transportation needs and is not used as a means to generate money, then it is also a type of liability. Currently, there are many business models that cause us to convert our assets into liabilities, especially if we are not well versed or truly skilled in that field. For instance, if you're not genuinely good at business or lack expertise, but you still invest a large sum to import goods. Due to a lack of sales management skills, those goods become unsold inventory and turn into dead money. It might even lead to having to destroy that unsold inventory, and then the money becomes a liability. We also need to understand that dead money comes in 2 forms: meaningful dead money and meaningless dead money. Dead money is meaningful when it serves our legitimate needs and creates meaning thereafter. For example, money used for essential needs like eating, sleeping, studying, working, or entertainment helps us maintain health and intellect to continue working, contributing, serving, and creating value and income. This is a big trap that gives us ample reason to spend money freely. Conversely, dead money is meaningless when it is used for unproductive purposes or actions, bringing no value or benefit, and may even corrupt or negatively impact other good values such as health, ethics, or intellect. By understanding this, we will be deeply aware of using money for the right purposes. Because wastefulness is also a bad act, affecting not only ourselves, but also the community and society as a whole. Generally, my advice to you is to minimize the use of this dead money as much as possible. Only use this money when it is truly essential. Asterisk 2. Existing money. Existing money still has value, but it is not circulating, not continuing to generate new money. It often exists in the form of savings, stashed away, a traditional form of accumulation quite common in previous periods. Today, this form, though less prevalent than before, still exists as a personal financial channel in many different forms, such as buying stored assets that do not generate cash flow but only await asset appreciation over time, like real estate or gold. The increase in value of stored assets over time is directly proportional to the inflation rate. In general, the potential of such stored assets does not create value for society, but is merely a form of short-term speculation. Clearly, if money were only created to exist, the economy would freeze. With no development, what would society become? After many years of accumulation, would that money still retain its original value when considering the nature of money? Asterisk 3. Living money. To speak of life is to speak of movement. Any species on Earth that possesses life is inherently linked to activities. These could be movement, actions, deeds, or metabolism to sustain life. Living money is similar. It circulates, is invested, and is used to generate new money, create surplus value, and generate benefits for society, and that very money creates cash flow for the wise. However, we need to understand living money in terms of its role as the cause of money generation, or what we often call money-making money. This means that a sum of money is used to generate even more money through profitable investment channels. This depends entirely on the mindset and capabilities of the money user. Because even with investment, some people generate countless profits, while others lose more than their initial capital. Let's take the example of the book business with two individuals who approach it differently, just like countless other product lines. The first person imports a large quantity of books at a low price and sells them at a high price to profit from the price difference on each book. He chooses the lowest priced batches to maximize profit. His biggest concern is profit, not the quality of the book's content. After a period of business, he makes a decent profit. However, his store gradually sees fewer customers as they realize the books here are not high quality. He finds the book business becoming more difficult. He switches to another, more profitable product and starts over with a new product and new field. Thus, the only thing he gains is more or less profit corresponding to the amount of goods he sells. And the result is that he continuously has to work and sell for the rest of his life. The second person engages in the book business because he is passionate about books and wants to spread the value of good books to the community. His higher calling is to fulfill his mission of elevating knowledge for the nation and humanity. This very aspiration drives him to find a sound, effective, and sustainable business path by all means. He focuses on developing the content of each book so that every book is a gem containing great value, bringing benefits to readers. A book is both a teacher and a friend because it contains knowledge with lessons and practical formulas, is artistic, and is a healthy spiritual food for everyone in society. For readers, when they spend money to buy a book, that money is truly living money because the book provides them with profound knowledge and insights, from which they can apply the values from the book to life to contribute and work to create daily income for them. Each book title is meticulously invested in terms of content, images, and effective communication methods. And each of these book titles, when it enters the market, becomes a sought-after product, generating a stream of money. This money flows through a multi-channel distribution system, creating various income streams. Thus, each book is a cash flow, flowing steadily every day because it brings the essence of knowledge to everyone. The money is reinvested to create new money with new income streams flowing into his pocket, because when readers buy a good book, they will continue to look for other good books, and the readers themselves will spread these good books to others. The better the book, the larger the cash flow. A book with eternal value, a good book for all time, generates infinite money. The better a book sells, the more money it creates. Thus, two people doing the same business but choosing different business and investment directions will yield different results. If one only focuses on money, the money earned will be finite. But if one focuses on the cause of money generation, the money earned is infinite. Similarly, for other products, if we focus on developing a good cause for money generation, we create more good value. Thus, when we have a good source of money generation, creating money is not difficult. We can transform everything into money when we know how to accurately identify the source and focus on developing it until it is large enough. We call this collectively the source of money generation, or resources that we build and own ourselves. When we have sufficient resources, our opportunity to create wealth increases. However, if we do not know how to activate, direct, and create a flow for circulation, that money will be wasted, failing to create a cycle of replenishment for the initial resources or investment in other sources. In other words, without a good development strategy, even the strongest resources will be wasted and difficult to sustain long-term. Money is born from the human need for exchange, and therefore it is born to die for living values. Thus, if we only focus on money, we will always be short of it. We need to understand and use money as a means to build value. When there is value, money will be generated naturally. Living money can exist in many different forms. Anything that can be a cause of money generation, such as assets with profitability potential that still contribute value to society, like rental properties, real estate with appreciation potential, production lines, working tools, intellectual property, business methods, production methods, recipes, copyrights, or other holdings like corporate shares, economic contracts, and brands. In other words, living money is an asset that can generate money, and the asset itself must create value for and serve society. However, tangible assets such as real estate, infrastructure, and other physical assets are often susceptible to external influences like political, economic, cultural, and social fluctuations, or inflation. In contrast, intangible assets like intellect, knowledge, and skills are assets that belong to us forever. Such assets can become the cause of money generation regardless of external circumstances. Therefore, precisely identifying the cause of money generation to invest in and develop those root causes is extremely important. Each individual possesses unique abilities, talents, and strengths, which are their own. But to become assets, they must be used to serve society and the community. And to be sustainable, they must be a shared possession of the community. Why is that? Imagine an artist who sings beautifully. For that voice to become his asset, generating income, he must perform it for others to hear and appreciate. His singing must bring positive spiritual and entertaining value to people. Conversely, if he uses that voice to create negative emotions or harmful impacts on others, no matter how good it is, no one will want to listen. And if he wants his name to become widely known, his voice must serve the masses, expressing the sentiments of the public, not just his own. At this point, his voice truly becomes the voice of the public. The noble title for an artist is People's Artist, not merely Distinguished Artist or Outstanding Artist. Asterisk 4. Meaningful money. Here we talk about meaningful money, meaning it is both an asset and generates surplus value. This is a relatively difficult level for its owner, because to create meaningful money, we need to use our intellect, dedication, and perseverance to serve and achieve meaningful things. Imagine you spend $100 to buy a book. Suppose it's a cookbook. After reading the instructions, you practice and perfect your skills in cooking delicious meals. Not stopping at cooking for yourself and your family, you open a small restaurant business, and it thrives. The money you earn from popular restaurants will be many times greater than the initial amount you spent on the book. That is surplus value. But that value is not generated only once or for a short time. It continues to sustain and grow forever. Because the knowledge you learned from the book has become your intellectual asset and your resource. And you don't just sell food, you can also sell a whole system of restaurants, a brand named after you. However, this is an example of meaningful dead money, whereas meaningful living money operates at a higher level of use. Still using the book example, but you are not the buyer but the seller of the book. This means you use your money to trade books, generating profit, which is also called living money. And those books create a lot of surplus value for many of your other customers. The question is, do all the books you sell bring value and surplus value to customers? Or do they become meaningless dead money as soon as customers leave your store? The answer lies in whether you truly provide valuable books that customers expect. It depends on your level of understanding of the very books you are selling. If you don't understand what you are selling, you won't be able to advise customers on what they need or what they are looking for. And the same applies to all other professions and fields. If you ensure that the value you deliver to customers will create surplus value for the customers themselves, then you are creating meaningful living money. This depends on your efforts to learn, in other words, your axe-sharpening process, and also on your business ethics. *5. Right money. Right money is living money used for the right purpose. Remember, money used for the right purpose is different from using money correctly for a given purpose. Because sometimes we use money correctly for a purpose, but that purpose itself may not necessarily be the right purpose. This is the highest and also the most difficult level, because identifying what the right purpose is not an easy task. We need wisdom and understanding. Furthermore, creating living money for the right purpose is far more valuable and also much more difficult than using dead money for the right purpose. Returning to the book business example above, if the surplus value generated after using a book creates positive and humanistic meaning for society, contributing to making society better and sustainably developed, then that is the right purpose. Conversely, if the books still generate monetary surplus value for the user but lead to bad consequences, negatively affecting the development of society, humanity, directly or indirectly, or do not benefit the community and society, then that is not the right purpose. This is sometimes very difficult to distinguish, requiring the implementer to have a broad and deep vision, encompassing the issues of humanity and the world in general, and smaller scopes in particular. Finding the right purpose is also finding the truth, mission, and path of one's life. However, it is a reality that many people today, due to misidentifying the truth, end up choosing the wrong purpose, the wrong path, and the wrong methods. For example, due to a misunderstanding of money or social status as the ultimate goal to achieve a rich and happy life, many people are willing to do anything, sacrifice honor, dignity, and health to achieve it. That is the origin of actions such as embezzlement, corruption, theft, and robbery, leading to the loss of their entire lives and future. We need to understand that the right purpose is truth. Truth is laws. Laws are things that must happen naturally. Following the laws, following nature, will help our endeavors be easier, achieve more sustainable success, and help society develop further. Chapter 3. Developing money-generating sources. Each of us possesses different resources to serve different goals. For example, to become a good doctor, the necessary resources include a process of learning to accumulate excellent expertise, a passion for the art of healing, dedication, and a willingness to contribute. To become an outstanding athlete, one needs good physical fitness, persistent training, and athletic talent. For generating money, resources are even more diverse. Each person needs to know how to flexibly and skillfully combine existing factors and immutable laws with changing and temporary factors to achieve results. Broadly speaking, a resource is defined as the sum of material and non-material values used to serve a specific development goal of a particular entity. Here we are discussing resources for the specific financial goal of money, meaning material and non-material values that can generate money, and the result must have a concrete plan to be achieved within a specific time limit. Within the framework and spirit of this book, we understand transforming everything into money. Here, transforming refers to specific methods, formulas, and approaches, and everything refers to resources. Into money refers to financial goals. Transforming everything into money means using resources to create cash flow, achieve goals, generate meaningful money, and assets with perpetual surplus value, ultimately transforming into national assets. All these factors play an important role in generating results and creating value. However, in reality, we often focus on the goal of money rather than on building our own resources. Investing in resources is similar to planting a tree to harvest its fruit, or sharpening an axe, as in the previous story. And we should set the goal of achieving financial freedom instead of possessing money, because it creates proactivity and flexibility for each of us in all social contexts, while also facilitating monetary circulation and promoting the overall development of society. Choose to create cash flow to establish a continuous and endless cycle. To achieve things that endure through time, The creation of resources must also follow its own laws. First, let's analyze the immutable laws that govern all aspects of human life and all things. All goals, strategies, and methods for resource development must be based on these immutable laws. The law of cause and effect. This is a universal law that encompasses and governs all species, objects, and phenomena in the universe. This law explains that everything in the present is the result of one or a series of previous causes. That result, in turn, becomes a new cause, continuing to create future results. Cause generates effect, and effect generates cause. Within the cause lies the effect, and within the effect lies the cause, an endless cycle. Indeed, everything from vast macro phenomena like the four seasons in nature, day and night, rain and sunshine, full moons and crescent moons, to the cyclical reproduction of all things and species, or the smallest things like a blossoming flower, all contain within them the laws of heaven and earth. To transform everything into money, we must also adhere to and correctly apply this law. Applying the law of cause and effect to creating cash flow means that we need to start by focusing on developing resources instead of starting by conquering monetary goals. Only when resources are sufficiently abundant can they generate results that are equal to or even greater than the goals we need to achieve. The important thing is that these resources not only help us achieve one goal, but many goals. Not just short-term goals, but long-term, even infinite goals. The law of attraction. The law of attraction explains the mutual attraction between corresponding frequencies. Specifically for humans, the law of attraction is often discussed in terms of how every action from thoughts, words, to deeds, whether conscious or unconscious, emits a frequency and attracts corresponding frequencies. This means it will attract people, situations, and events that respond to the thoughts, words, and actions that have been emitted. As we mentioned earlier, money is created from energy and carries energy within it. If we want to create cash flow, if we want to transform everything into money, we also need to have a correct understanding of money and the right attitude towards it. At the same time, we need to have appropriate goals, strategies, and methods to maximize resources and generate results. The law of focus asterisk. The law of focus states that what we focus on expands. Indeed, in any field, when we concentrate our minds, efforts, and time on it, we will gain understanding and achieve worthy results. When encountering problems and making money, our task is not to avoid difficulties and seek what is easy, but to confront them to understand their nature and find solutions. Only when we find precise and appropriate solutions can we conquer our goals and ascend to a new level. We cannot go against these laws, we certainly cannot change them. The better way is to abide by these laws, and the best way is to leverage them to turn everything around them into our own resources. Let's take the law of cause and effect as an example. We know that when a seed is sown into the ground, it will invariably grow into a tree of the same kind. It cannot be a different type of tree. That is a law, and we cannot change it. If we want to achieve results according to our wishes, we must sow a new seed. That seed must be chosen to match the fruit we want to harvest. When we choose the right seed to sow, the fruit we receive will surely be what we desire. Even if we wanted to change the outcome, it would be impossible. Laws are inherently inevitable and certain to occur. They are universal and encompass everything. But sometimes we mistakenly believe them to be random, failing to distinguish between the categories of necessity and contingency, and thus we remain forever struggling and in hardship in life. The act of making money is like countless other human activities, like the countless operations of everything in the universe. It is also governed by laws, and if we do not understand this, we will inadvertently miss opportunities and may even cause our careers to fall into stagnation. So, let's analyze and ponder. If your financial success, in other words, the money you have, is the fruit of a tree, then consider how it was produced. Clearly, it must have been created through a process from when the seed was sown into the ground, sprouting its first roots, drawing water and nutrients for the plant to grow until maturity, and then finally blossoming and bearing fruit. The quality and quantity of the fruit depend on the quantity and quality of the growth process. And once harvested, if we want to continue harvesting in subsequent seasons, we need to continue nurturing, sowing new seeds, and waiting for the harvest. Let's reflect. Have we truly learned how to choose and care for our financial tree? Or are we, every day, diligently searching for ready-made fruits on some tree, hoping to find them one day soon, those fleeting money-making opportunities, random luck, or a treasure from a fairy tale? Unfortunately, the number of people who hunt and gather is very large, and the number of people who plant trees is very small. The question is, how do we grow the financial tree as we desire? The answer is to start with the seed you have in hand. Rest assured that each of us from birth owns one or more of our own seeds. They may be similar or different, but each person must know how to sow and use that seed to create their own success. Most of us are born with all our body parts and senses. Yet some have a strength in observation, some are very sensitive to sound, some are very good at expressing themselves verbally, and some have extraordinary physical abilities. These are the seeds. However, not everyone knows how to sow and turn them into a thriving plant. A person with a talent for language, but who does not cultivate or refine it, choosing a daily job without verbal communication, cannot turn their aptitude into a talent. This leads to confusion, and similarly with other seeds, wastes their potential. Moreover, even if they choose an environment with verbal communication, but do so inconsistently and only for a short time, they will not succeed, because sufficient quantity is needed to bring about a qualitative change. So, start with any seed you have in hand, seriously and with enough time and dedication to nurture it. One day, you will surely reap success. Returning to the issue of resources. Resources are the root, the cause that produces fruit. Having a seed does not mean you are guaranteed to harvest fruit, but when you create roots, you hold a significant advantage in your hands. The stronger the roots, the higher the quality and quantity of the fruit. Resources are made up of many elements and are procedural. Nothing in this world arises spontaneously. Everything is formed from one or a series of previous causes. There are many different forms of resources. There are internal resources, external resources, natural resources, and artificial resources. Sometimes they are clearly visible and help us, but most often, they are hidden beneath what seems like common sense, making them difficult for us to grasp. And therefore, we often employ methods to achieve desired outcomes, forgetting to focus on the root causes that generate those results. There are many different types of resources, existing in various forms. But fundamentally, we can summarize them into 6 main types of resources, belonging to 2 groups: external resources and internal resources. External resources include assets, time, and natural and social laws. Internal resources include intellect, labor, aspirations and ideals, willpower and perseverance, and relationships. Relationships are categorized as internal resources because they are created by us through our interactions with society. We are the ones who determine the quality of the relationships around us. Now let's analyze each resource to understand its role in the process of using that resource to transform into money, thereby helping us achieve success in life. Asterisk 1. Asset resources. Typically, we understand assets as high-value material possessions that can be converted into money at any time. Individuals who own many assets clearly have an advantage over those who own few or no assets. These are readily available, tangible financial resources that we can see. But very few people are fortunate enough to own valuable assets from birth. Most of us have to go through a process of decades to achieve financial results. Therefore, when referring to asset resources, we need to understand them in a broader sense, encompassing the following aspects: material assets, intangible assets, and natural assets. Material assets are often only considered at the lowest level tangible assets, or more precisely, physical objects that we exploit or protect. But we forget that intangible assets can hold far greater value and significance. Intangible assets can exist in the form of an invention formula, a copyright, a unique trade secret, an exclusive operating license, or an author's copyright. Sometimes, an asset can even manifest in the distinctiveness, or even the peculiarity, of an individual. The greatest level of assets is natural assets. They do not belong to any single individual, but those who know how to harness such resources can create endless streams of money. Look at natural landscapes, famous tourist destinations, or regional specialties that nature has uniquely bestowed upon certain lands. Observe how money flows into these places every day, and we will see the value of the natural assets gifted by the divine. Of course, exploiting these assets also requires certain principles that not everyone can follow. We will analyze this in more detail later in this book. Each of us needs to accurately recognize each type of asset, understand its nature, and apply the laws and methods to develop the asset resources of nature, our country, and ourselves, transforming them into money, into a means to serve the overall development of the nation. Asterisk 2. Time resources. Time in human life is finite. We cannot hold on to it, decide its course, or change it, so it is considered an external resource. Knowing how to manage and use time is also knowing how to harness a great resource to achieve success. In reality, successful people are those who know how to manage and utilize time effectively. A person who knows how to harness time as a resource is someone who knows how to use their own time and also the time of others, transforming everything into money, including transforming others' time into money. Asterisk 3. Natural and social resources asterisk. Often we consider these laws to be obvious and do not pay attention to their role in life. But if we realize that these laws are the foundation for creating and operating everything, we will see that this is an immense resource. Look at submarines, weighing tens of tons, conquering the ocean. They operate underwater using engines and fuel, but they are also designed based on physical principles, adhering to natural laws of buoyancy and water pressure. They absolutely cannot disregard these principles. Engineers always calculate and apply physical principles, calculating as accurately as possible to utilize them well and achieve high performance, and vice versa. Similarly, look at airplanes flying in the sky, cars driving on the road. All are designed and operated according to their own principles based on the natural conditions of the operating environment. Of course, an automobile engine cannot be used for an airplane, or vice versa. Then let's look at the animals and plants living on Earth. All have distinct species characteristics based on their natural living environment. Contrary to nature, they cannot exist and develop. Even as humans, no matter how modern we become, how advanced technology gets, we still have to rely on the laws of nature. We must go through childhood before we can grow up and master our lives. To achieve results, we must go through a process of effort and struggle. And that process is the process of creating resources. However, not all our efforts always yield results. Because if it goes against the law, no matter how much effort is put in, it cannot bring results. Therefore, laws are also resources. Having knowledge and wisdom to exploit natural resources is extremely essential. Money is a medium of the socioeconomic system. Therefore, it also adheres to the general laws in the development of society as a whole. To transform everything into money, one must first know how to transform everything into a resource. And to transform into a resource, we must have knowledge and understanding of the laws of society and the economy in general. Asterisk 4. Labor resources. Clearly, all achievements in society, from ancient times to the present, and of each individual are the fruits of labor. Labor transforms ideas into reality. Labor transforms the intangible into the tangible. And it is obviously an immense resource. Wherever and whenever, labor can generate money, but the amount of money generated differs, because it is a necessary but not sufficient factor. Labor becomes a resource when it is brought together to execute the right plan. An intelligent person is someone who knows how to gather and utilize the time and labor of many others to generate money. Asterisk 5. Intellectual resources. Intellectual resources are not as readily available as labor resources. They are the result of an individual's or many individuals' processes of work, learning, and distilling experience. When focusing on intellect to develop it into a resource, we can activate many other resources such as money, labor, time, and relationships, not just our own, but also those of others to generate more money. Those who know how to use purely intellectual resources are often scientists, experts, and intellectual workers. They use their talent, intelligence, and creativity to generate money. On the other hand, those who know how to combine other resources with intellect are often business owners. They know how to use their own money or that of others to acquire the intellect, labor, and relationships of many others and generate income for themselves. However, if they do not clearly understand natural laws, they may follow the path of becoming capitalists. Although they contribute to the economic development of the nation, in some aspects, they indirectly create imbalance. Asterisk 6. Relationship resources. Many of us often do not know that relationships are also a resource, and thus often do not focus on developing them or do not know how to utilize them. Sometimes, people even misunderstand that using relationships to achieve a goal is a negative act. In reality, we live in a society, and our lives are a summation of relationships. The things we do daily are tied to highly social activities. From ancient times, primitive people lived in groups, then evolved into tribes, then larger nations. Today, globalization is an inevitable social trend that all nations aspire to. In essence, it is the process of developing relationships to a higher level. Clearly, an ordinary person cannot live without family, friends, and other relationships. Relationships are a part of the living environment. No one can become great without the help and recognition of others. Through interaction with the surrounding social environment, people become more mature and complete. For people with social standing, in addition to relationships within family, friends, and colleagues, they also have relationships with the public. Relationships can be likened to the wind that lifts a kite high. Especially in today's society, the development of social networks helps relationships grow faster and stronger. Anyone who knows how to leverage relationship resources will quickly achieve success. There's a true story about a young man who became famous overnight by seizing an opportunity to develop relationships. This happened when a world-renowned football team visited his country. The young man showed his admiration by running after the team's bus for several kilometers. His enthusiasm touched the players, who stopped the bus and invited him to join them. Clearly, he had established a good relationship with famous people in a very short time and in a very special way. Thanks to this relationship, he became famous and built his own career. Identifying and focusing on developing these resources is crucial. For each person, these types of resources manifest in different forms. For instance, one person's intellectual resource might be mathematical intelligence, while another's might be aesthetic intelligence. Or one person might have excellent physical coordination, while another possesses exceptional dexterity in their 10 fingers, and so on. Therefore, it is necessary to clearly identify the elements that constitute one's own resources to focus on developing them. Of course, everything can be learned, but learning based on existing foundations will be more effective and faster. We need to understand who we are, what we have, and what we want to define ourselves. Once we have defined what kind of person we want to become, we will identify the resources, plan to develop them accordingly, apply the laws, and leverage relationships. For a business, the first thing to do is also to develop resources, but the scale and methods will differ. Defining a business requires identifying its mission, core values, business philosophy, and the business's role in the overall development of society. Resource development is a process with ascending steps through different stages, requiring continuous learning, change, and improvement. Asterisk Chapter 4. The formula for transforming everything into money. Surely all of us have heard of the 3 important factors: heaven's timing, favorable external conditions, Earth's advantage, favorable geographical location resources, and human harmony, unity, and strength of people. Lacking any one of these makes success difficult in any field. The elements of human harmony are a collection of the resources we discussed in the previous chapter. The formula for transforming everything into money is to flexibly apply and thoroughly exploit these resources. It is not by chance that heaven's timing is presented first and human harmony last, because humans, no matter how talented, are only a part of the universe of nature. Living on Earth, we must obey the laws of creation. The formula for transforming everything into money consists of 3 steps. 1. The resources you transform into money. 2. Transforming everything into money, designing a cash flow. 3. Developing multiple income streams. Asterisk 1. The resources you transform into money. Creating cash flow depends entirely on the ability to develop money-generating sources. The larger the source, the stronger the cash flow. The more abundant the source, the more sustainable the cash flow. To develop a source, we must correctly identify it, then design the flow and operate it correctly. Sources typically exist at 3 main levels, which we temporarily call existing resources. Level 1, Labor resources. This is the most basic asset, and most of us possess it and can easily recognize it. Anyone who is an adult with sufficient health, capacity, awareness, and behavior can use their strength to generate money and sustain themselves. However, this type of asset is finite. The way to transform something into money at this level is to use one's strength in exchange for money. At a higher level, it involves combining it with time for learning and practice to develop skills and expertise to earn more money. This level always constitutes the majority in any society. Level 2. Intellectual resources. Intellectual resources are not as readily available as labor resources. They are the fruit of one's own or many people's labor, learning, and accumulated experience. When focusing on intellect to develop it into a resource, one can activate many other resources such as money, labor, time, and relationships, not just one's own, but also those of others to generate more money. Those who purely use intellectual resources are often scientists, experts, and intellectual workers. They use their talent, intelligence, and creativity to generate money. Conversely, those who combine other resources with intellect are often business owners. They know how to use their own money or that of others to acquire the intellect, labor, and relationships of many others, thereby generating income for themselves. However, if they do not clearly understand natural laws, they may fall into the trap of becoming capitalist owners. While they contribute to the nation's economic development, in some aspects, they indirectly create imbalance. Level 3. Creators' resources, natural assets. The greatest asset is truly the creator's asset. Natural assets include land, natural resources, various forms of energy, living environments, precious metals, minerals, natural scenic spots, and regional specialties shaped by unique soil and climate. A mansion built on a piece of land holds immense asset value, but much of that value comes from the land itself. Over time, the mansion may deteriorate and lose value, while the value of the land continues to increase. Clearly, the land, a creator's asset, is the true asset and resource, while the house, a human asset, is merely a basic form of property. A scenic attraction will generate money, and a lot of it, when people know how to preserve, conserve, and exploit it correctly. Conversely, if people exploit it improperly, abusing renovations and construction, it will lose its natural beauty, disrupt ecological balance, and not only fail to be effective, but also harm the environment and climate. This goes against natural law and will, of course, lead to consequences. A special regional product can generate an endless stream of money if its seller knows how to spread its good values to the community and society, knowing how to transform it into a symbol and the soul of the nation. In doing so, they can leverage the power of the entire community in communication, marketing, and brand development. Nature always favors and nurtures humanity, as it does all species. Natural assets are common assets for all of us and all living things, such as the living environment, water sources, air, temperature, resources, and food sources for all species. Nature is like a mother's breast nurturing her children. If we want that milk to be abundant and pure, we must know how to protect, care for, preserve, and exploit it correctly. At the same time, we need to share the awareness of protecting nature and other species to maintain ecological balance. It is a reality that all species rely on nature. And as a matter of course, ecological balance always ensures the survival, development, and evolution of all flora and fauna on Earth. Although other species and humans do not know the concept of private property, humans always want to possess more and more, exploiting more and more to satisfy the feeling of wealth, success, or in essence, greed and selfishness. This is why nature is negatively altered, leading to consequences. We do not deny that economic development is necessary to propel social progress, but that does not mean we do everything possible to exploit, destroy, and compete, leading to bloody wars to possess golden forests and silver seas. That goes against the laws of creation. So, what is true wealth? We should understand that wealth does not mean possessing many high-value material assets. After all, we cannot take those things with us when we leave this world. True wealth is abundance in all aspects of life and discovering the true meaning of life, thereby creating good and eternal living values. Wealth is measured by peace of mind, financial autonomy, health and longevity, influence in relationships, contributions to society, giving, reputation, and career, and the legacy left behind after we depart this world. We are discussing financial autonomy, the way to transform everything into money, but we do not acknowledge ownership because we need to create living money that is always circulating and creating value. Therefore, we need to focus on generating cash flow by creating it. Only cash flow creates financial freedom. Only cash flow creates circulation and contributes to the development of society and aligns with the laws of nature. Instead of setting a goal of how much money to earn, set a goal of how many cash flows to create. Instead of desiring a huge fortune, focus on developing the volume of the flow. Asterisk 2. Transforming everything into money, design a cash flow. Let's return to the story of Pablo and Bruno. The water source is a natural asset that anyone can exploit, but they differed in how they exploited it and how they used their resources. The villagers were content to spend their finite money. When their labor ended, so did their money. This is a law of nature. And when a person dedicates all their labor to work, they will have no time left for other aspects of life. Pablo, on the other hand, spent a long time developing his resources. To have a pipeline that consistently delivered water to the villagers, he had to design it based on physical principles such as slope, flow pressure, regulating valves, and the daily volume of water to meet the village's needs. He accepted a reduction in income from carrying water to invest his labor in his project. Resource development is a process that requires the implementer to sacrifice immediate benefits and persevere to achieve the sweet final result. We can also see that there are many resources around us. The important thing is whether we recognize them and find the right way to transform them into money. Each of us, based on our own abilities, will utilize external resources and transform them into something useful for others. When others receive valuable things, they are willing to pay for them. Thus here, we need the ability to recognize our own resources. Not only that, but we also need to use our time and effort to make those resources valuable and useful to ourselves and to others. Packaging a machine asterisk. Let's compare a wage earner and a consumer goods manufacturing business owner. The wage earner can easily find a suitable job and quickly earn a monthly salary. When he leaves this job, he will find another similar one. But the old job will absolutely no longer provide him with income. Conversely, the business owner must start by acquiring knowledge about business, management, the market, marketing, and creating a detailed plan and roadmap over a long period. Then, the owner must invest a large amount of capital in premises, equipment, production tools, and paying employees. In the initial period of operation, revenue is unstable, and he may only earn enough to cover the above costs or even incur losses. After some time, if his business management skills are good and the business is heading in the right direction, meeting market supply and demand, producing good products beneficial to consumers, and contributing to society, revenue will increase and he will start to make a profit. At this point, the resources are sufficient and he begins to have cash flow. The money he earns may be significantly more than the wages he pays the workers. However, whether the business owner's earnings are consistent and increase over time still depends on many objective factors at any given time, such as raw material prices, labor costs, market fluctuations, and economic and political changes. Ultimately, when this business owner's enterprise runs smoothly, he has a machine that generates large and steady cash flow for him. Owning money-making machines, copyrights. Let's continue to compare with a book publishing business. Books are intellectual products, the essence of humanity throughout all ages. Therefore, a book publisher does not invest in the same way as the manufacturing business above, but rather invests in the quality and content of the product, because only good books with valuable content will sell. And of course, the book publisher is not the one who creates all the books, but rather uses the labor and intellect of others. Their job is to spread that intellectual essence to society, delivering good values to the community. Suppose the company has 1,000 titles, and each title has hundreds of thousands of copies. The company's sales system has 4 channels, with each channel having hundreds of large and small agencies across the country and even abroad. If each agency sells just a few copies of a book title daily, and each title is only $10, then the company's daily revenue would be hundreds of thousands of dollars, truly enormous. This illustrates that leveraging the intellect of others is also a way to utilize resources to transform them into valuable things, and that value will bring value to oneself. Another significant difference is that while others continuously exchange their time, labor, and intellect for additional income, those who own book copyrights do not. This is because a copyright owner only needs to invest once to write a book and obtain a copyright, and then they can exploit that book's copyright many times, even hundreds of thousands of times, or forever. The noteworthy point here is that the cost and effort to write a book, typically involving time and intellect, are often much lower compared to other types of consumer products. Furthermore, the various stages do not require many workers. The special thing here is that, for each copyright, the effort we put in is only once, but it can be exploited an unlimited number of times, thereby providing us with unlimited cash flow. That is the secret of the wealthy. Remember to focus on unlimited sources to have unlimited cash flow. Each book copyright is an automatic cash flow. Reprinting means creating a new cash flow, which also expands the flow's volume. When there is an automatic cash flow, we can move on to building other sources without affecting the current flow of each book copyright. Owning exploitation rights, businesses that utilize nature's products. Businesses that utilize nature's products do not require massive investment in production or extensive reinvestment, but only costs for care, preservation, and conservation. The important thing is to acquire the right to exploit nature's products from the local authorities. With just a few documents, such as a business license and an exploitation permit, they can tap into nature's products like water treatment plants, wind power, solar energy, oil and mineral extraction, or tourism services. For example, a tourism business simply needs to reimagine the space and amenities of a particularly located area, and simultaneously launch accompanying eco-services like entertainment and dining facilities around it. Their job is to preserve and enhance the product, making it increasingly beautiful, clean, and spiritually valuable. Then, they promote it to attract more people. In addition to generating profits from ticket sales for the business, they also play a role in promoting, attracting, and creating a unique brand for the region and the country, contributing to overall economic development. Their initial investment resource is relationships. They must demonstrate their business capabilities to obtain the business license granted by the local government. Asterisk 3. Developing multiple income streams. Clearly, choosing the field of investment and the resources to develop initially is very important, as it will determine the operation of the cash flow. However, to be capable enough to exploit nature's assets, we all must start from the lowest level and gradually move up. This is both a process of development and a process of resource preparation. Only when resources are sufficient can cash flow be created. When we know how to combine all three types of resources: labor, intellect, and nature's assets, we can transform anything into money. One thing is certain: to create a sustainable cash flow, we must necessarily solve a societal problem. This means that our actions must create value for society, benefiting the community and the world. This implies that resource development will be much more difficult and require much more perseverance. The greater the problem solved, the grander the enterprise becomes. Once we have sufficient resources, the first thing we need to do is identify a major problem and solve it. Of course, societal problems are not confined to a single aspect or field. They are often very complex. One problem leads to another, creating chain effects or interwoven issues. Our task is to propose solutions, implementation methods, and package them into a process. When that process is applied, it can solve problems quickly, effectively, and easily. Then we have created a cash flow. This formula is illustrated by the following concrete example. A business chooses to trade books, stemming from a major societal challenge. Low intellectual standards due to the nation's culture being assimilated for many years, leading to slow economic, cultural, and social development, and a declining quality of life. To foster economic development, cultural development must necessarily occur by enabling everyone to access the intellectual essence of humanity. This intellectual essence has historically been passed down through books. However, reading books is not easy for many people because if their awareness is limited, they will consider it useless, time-consuming, and utterly boring. Making reading easy, convenient, and effective, gradually becoming a habit for everyone, is already difficult, and making it a cultural trait for an entire nation is even harder. For a country with millions of people, going house to house, meeting each person to explain, guide, and persuade would be an impossible task. At this point, the business must leverage resources to optimize communication effectiveness. This is the power of intellect and love. When intellect combines with love, it reaches the deepest levels of human consciousness, inspiring and resolving root issues in perception. People enjoy reading books with deeply humanistic life lessons, and love becomes a daily joy. Creating bookshelves with different themes, content, and styles, meeting the needs of individual readers instead of rigid, uniform approaches, makes it easier to engage readers. At the same time, each reader can also become a distribution channel and even an author through publishing consulting services for entrepreneurs. At this point, the business becomes a bridge, simultaneously utilizing the intellectual resources, time, and labor of many people. However, the mission of the business is to spread, connect, and develop these resources. This not only benefits the business itself, but also benefits individuals and the community, contributing to the overall development of society. Thus, many cash flows are continuously generated, and the flow volume gradually increases. When the flow volume is large enough, it will continue to form a new source of money with different income streams. The business continues to expand its ecosystem with related industries, such as printing and education. This is a process of development and also a process of forming new resources. When resources are sufficient, it will expand into different fields, exploiting the assets of creation such as real estate, minerals, and tourism. This can take the form of a conglomerate comprising multiple businesses, then a multinational corporation expanding beyond national borders. There are no limits to developing resources and no limits to developing cash flow. Money does not arise spontaneously, nor does it disappear spontaneously. It only circulates and is reused in the process of human exchange of goods. In other words, it transfers from one person's ownership to another's. Therefore, to transform everything into money, remember to ensure the principle of creating value and benefits for customers, the community, and society. Money will automatically flow towards you. Part 3. Creating cash flow. The skilled know how to earn money well, the wise know how to create money wisely, and the exceptional know the root cause of money generation. Creating cash flow is the act of generating a flow that transforms the value of resources into money. Without creativity to establish cash flow, resources become meaningless and wasted. Creating cash flow also means generating a source of passive income to achieve financial freedom for individuals, for the social community, and for all humanity. It is also the ideal model of a system where one works according to ability and receives according to need, the highest level of development for human society. Developing resources is considered the first and most important task, similar to laying the foundation for a construction project, or like sowing and nurturing a tree to bear fruit. Choosing good seeds is very important, but more important is how to make that seed grow and develop into a good tree. Starting with anything means focusing on our own readily available resources, because only by starting with what we already have will development be easy. If we only seek and rely on external resources, we will always be dependent, and any objective change will quickly cause achievements to collapse. Chapter 1. Automating cash flow. Creating cash flow is already difficult, but automating that cash flow is even more challenging. A person who earns money knows how to spend it. A person who creates money knows how to use it. A person who generates cash flow knows how to manage money. And a person who knows how to automate cash flow is someone who knows how to control money. In society, truly few people know how to control money. They are not born with this ability. It is the result of lessons learned from reality, from experience, or from mentors. But we understand that the brighter the glory, the more thorny the path, the higher the mountain, the more arduous the climb. The price for financial success is paid not only with money but also with blood and tears, with sacrifice and compromise, with faith and youth, and countless other things. But our task is not to sit there seeing difficulties, being afraid, and getting discouraged. Our task is to choose the shortest path, use the best means, and select the most enjoyable way of learning. It's like a cable car taking us to the highest peak, admiring all the most magnificent scenery on the journey, conquering the mountain with a joyful, comfortable, and freest state of mind. Essentially, everything in this world operates according to pre-existing laws, which repeat and are interconnected. Once we understand a law, we will understand its mode of operation, predict the results, or what will happen next. And finally, we will know how to bring them back into alignment, forming a continuous cycle that is automation. You probably remember childhood games like O and Quan, Mandarin Square Capture, or Juggling Stones. All of them contain lessons. We learn those lessons easily and enjoyably. Recall the first time you played O and Quan. You picked a random square and distributed the pebbles evenly. The result was random. You might collect a pile, you might collect one pebble, or you might get nothing. But after each round, you would realize whether starting from that square would lead to nothing or something, and in subsequent rounds, you would know which square to start from. Because it is a cycle with only that many squares, that many pebbles, that many moves. The pebbles you hold in your hand are your initial assets. The squares on the ground are the flow of money. Knowing how to direct the flow, you will collect double your assets. Not knowing how, you will lose everything. To win, you must know how to play. Your assets as an adult seem similar to the pebbles you have in the game of O and Quan. The market or the flow of the economy is like the squares on the ground. Where you put your money is your choice, and how much you receive is also up to you. So why don't we learn how to create money, how to automate cash flow, in the same way we learn a game with excitement and relaxation, instead of the pressures and worries that weigh us down every day? Through the ideal of writing this book, transforming everything into money, I have provided a more practical approach to give readers the opportunity for practical experience through the money game. I created it based on the idea of transforming everything into money, hoping that through the game, it will provide you with the necessary and important practical experiences and mindsets in the process of creating money, cash flow, and automating cash flow in your real life. Asterisk Chapter 2. Transferring and Duplicating Success Asterisk. Success is a journey with endless steps. Life is constantly moving and developing. Therefore, we must continuously develop ourselves to higher levels. The time has come for us to transfer our successes to others. That is how we duplicate ourselves. Historically, great masters have always had successors, but usually within a small circle of close family or trusted disciples. They often did not widely impart their essence, but rather through secret traditions, leading to these essences gradually fading away, failing to create lasting value or eternal fame for the names they had painstakingly built throughout their lives, like good seeds forgotten and never sown, becoming wasted. Conversely, many people, even if not truly erudite, brilliant, or absolutely exceptional, are willing to spread their achievements and share their success with others, thus gaining significant influence and eternal renown. Even if their work remains unfinished, it serves as a foundation, inspiration, or catalyst for the successes of future generations. The most important thing is that their contributions benefit the community and humanity. That is what truly gives meaning to their lives. Therefore, the next step after automating cash flow is to transfer it to others and replicate it, because your mission is to continue creating new automatic cash flows. Only by letting go of one thing can you seize another. To facilitate easy transfer, you need to package them neatly and completely, and at the same time, inspire the recipient. They should receive it as a gift, rather than feeling burdened by a responsibility. Package them in the form of a game, a story, a small book, a film, or some other work of art. Asterisk Chapter 3. Recreating Cash Flow. Just as all objects and species in this universe participate in the universal law of motion and development, so too must money in society always move to create new values. And we, as users or controllers of our money, in one way or another, are always striving to make it multiply every day. This is manifested in saving, accumulating, doing business, investing, or other financial activities. However, not all methods are the same, and not all yield effective results, generating new money. Some may even lead to losses. The lesson of financial management, profitable investment, or recreating cash flow is always a difficult one, requiring the learner to possess financial knowledge, foresight, emotional management skills, and good moral character. This is because money is created as a tool to develop society, making it increasingly prosperous and civilized. If the money user lacks these qualities, not only will society fail to develop, but it will also become chaotic and troubled because of money. Social stratification will increase, and social ills will proliferate. Let's imagine if some segment of society used their money to manipulate markets, engage in speculative profiteering for personal gain, disregarding all societal ethical rules to acquire ill-gotten wealth. Would that society be civilized, prosperous, and developed? Therefore, our discussion of recreating cash flow here must connect it to the overall development of society, for the benefit of the community and for the happiness of all humanity. To achieve this, we need to clearly understand the nature of some forms of money creation that we often misunderstand. Asterisk 1. Assets in cash flow. Most of us, after accumulating some money, often try to preserve it from loss and make it grow. Some choose to deposit it in a bank for savings and monthly or annual interest. Some choose to buy gold for storage, while others buy houses or land for ownership. Fundamentally, these are all forms of asset ownership. These assets may gradually increase in value over time. At some point, we sell them and collect a larger sum than the initial investment. However, while waiting for appreciation, these assets remain completely stagnant, creating no other value and not contributing to social development. Have we ever wondered why banks are willing to lend us money anytime, any amount, and are ready to pay us monthly or annual interest? Do they lend us money and then let that money sit idle? Of course not. So what do? Banks are financial institutions. They borrow money from us and then lend it to others at a higher interest rate or invest it in well-vetted projects with higher profit margins. It's a reality that the poor often deposit money in banks, while the rich often borrow money from banks, and strangely enough, the poor get poorer and the rich get richer. Why is that? The money that the poor accumulate through years, even a lifetime of labor. They deposit it in banks to safeguard it and receive small interest payments for personal monthly or annual expenses. Meanwhile, the rich borrow that money to invest and create new cash flows. In the process of investing, manufacturing, doing business, and trading, they drive the upward development of society, create jobs for others, and pay taxes to the state. The people who work for them are precisely those who are depositing money in banks. Clearly, they are using other people's money, time, and labor to generate money, and banks do the same. However, they play different roles in society, and of course, they must be competent enough and capable of taking responsibility for the risks. Thus, assets and cash flow are two relatively distinct definitions. To transform everything into money, we must know how to operate cash flow appropriately. Asterisk 2. Reasonable cash flow and unreasonable cash flow. Cash flow can only circulate smoothly when it creates a suitable circulatory system or ecosystem. That is, the flow of money must be distributed, directed, and operated reasonably, ensuring balance and harmony, especially in creating new sources and reinvestment. We agree that money is created to serve humans, improve the quality of life, and meet human needs in all aspects. However, it also needs to serve the higher purpose of creating social welfare, general prosperity, and civilization for humanity. Only then does money truly become meaningful. However, not a few people in society do everything to earn money solely to satisfy their material and entertainment needs. When they no longer have the health to work and enjoy life, their lives also lose meaning and leave no valuable legacy for the future or for society. Therefore, as long as we can still generate money, as long as we can still create value for society and a legacy for ourselves, we need to know how to create reasonable cash flows. Let's take an example of using money for entertainment purposes. Some people choose to entertain themselves by spending a lot of money on shopping, traveling, and dining at very expensive places. The larger the amount spent, the more it reflects their status, creating pride and a sense of accomplishment among those around them. But do these things create value for society and others? Conversely, some choose to travel and explore new lands by learning about the unique cultural characteristics of different ethnic groups, the specific features of each region, and the circumstances of each social stratum. From there, they appreciate what they have, experience the meaning of life, the joy of giving, and the pride of contributing. Clearly, both are entertainment, both involve using money, but the two ways of using it are entirely different and yield different values. Asterisk 3. 3 major levers to create cash flow. Each of us is gifted by the Creator with a mind and a pair of hands, along with a similar natural environment and living conditions. However, the legacy each person leaves behind in life is different. Some create works that endure for thousands of years. Some help countless others, yet some create nothing, live quietly, and pass away. The difference is not in each person's physical strength, but in what they do. Clearly, with our small hands, we cannot do everything to create a great work. We must rely on the strength of many people, but only those who dare to decide, dare to choose, and dare to see things through are worthy of recognition. And someone capable of great deeds is someone who knows how to link strengths. In other words, someone who knows how to use levers. In creating cash flow, there are 3 major types of levers to generate power. 1. Other people's money. 2. Other people's labor. 3. Other people's time. Most of us are using our own time and labor to create money for ourselves, and then accumulating or investing that money to make it multiply. In contrast, those with a master's mindset operate in the opposite way. They use other people's money, other people's labor, and other people's time to generate money. They program one or more systems of continuous cash flow that circulate and develop. Within this overall development, individual participants also experience their own development. Linking individual interests with collective interests, that is the way to automate cash flow. Let's return to the book business we discussed earlier. A book's journey to the reader involves many stages, from editing, publishing, to communication and sales, and a single individual cannot handle all these stages alone. An author cannot produce all book titles to serve the public. Therefore, a book company acts as a connector, linking works with the public, creating a name for the author, providing knowledge to readers, and contributing to the development of culture and raising societal literacy. Clearly, in this endeavor, the book company is using the time, labor, intellect, and money of others, specifically authors, readers, or those involved in the business. The company generates revenue and profit, but simultaneously brings great benefits to authors, readers, and participants. Only when a business creates genuine value for society will it gain societal recognition and have the opportunity to develop, creating sustainable cash flow. Bad debt and good debt. We all know that banks and financial institutions are businesses like any others, and their business field is money, capital, and assets. Thus, they always need customers, they encourage customers to borrow capital, and of course, they want that capital to be a means for the user to generate profit, to multiply into new money. Only then can the bank's business be favorable and develop. Although banks always have regulations and collateral requirements to mitigate risks, ultimately, their business objective is to create a continuous flow of money through monthly and annual interest, promoting economic growth and social welfare. Therefore, those who cannot repay their loans become bad debt. Conversely, those who can repay are good debt, and good debt is always encouraged and provided opportunities to borrow more, to continue borrowing. There are always 2 schools of thought regarding borrowing. For those with a mindset of saving and accumulating, they always feel uneasy and fearful of debts, especially collateralized debts. This is because they constantly fear losing the assets they have accumulated over many years, so when doing business, they often consider risks more than opportunities for success. This is completely understandable. Conversely, there are those who always view borrowing as an effective financial leverage, an opportunity to create more than the initial sum. Of course, this second school of thought represents a minority, only about 20%, and among that 20%, only 20% succeed. Only those who truly have knowledge, courage, experience, and an understanding of social laws and market dynamics have the ability to win. Asterisk Chapter 4. The Causes of Money Generation. Asterisk 1. A team organization. Money is created as a means to make human life more convenient and easier. However, as society develops, it creates a starker differentiation between rich and poor, where the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. Why is this so? Part of the reason is how each person uses and manages their money. When we control money, it is a tool. But when we constantly have to chase it, doing everything to obtain it, we become its slave. Only when we know how to create automatic cash flow, allowing it to operate according to a preset program, can we truly be free. Therefore, always maintain the mindset of an owner. View making money as a game. Understand the rules of the game thoroughly to become a winner. Money is not held by a single person. It also cannot multiply when it sits in an individual's pocket. It must circulate to create new money. Therefore, individuals themselves cannot create cash flow alone. Think of a team or an organized crew. Let's look back at the banking model. Clearly, they don't use their own money to lend. They use other people's money to lend. Large corporations don't entirely use their own capital. They use bank capital and other people's labor to generate profits. Each of us, wanting to transform everything into money, needs to know what role we can play in a team and how to operate that team. To sustain and develop, the paramount factor is benefits. Only when each individual's benefits are ensured will the bond be sustainable. *2. Value system. A value system is a collection of values expressed as qualities, principles, ideals, and philosophies of a team, organization, or business. Among these, human values, cultural values, and social values are the most important and core value systems. Indeed, humans are the subjects of society. Humans create cultures and determine the sustainable development of humanity. If people possess negative qualities such as selfishness, envy, and malice, they will create a society rife with cutthroat competition, deception, and mutual destruction, leading to a toxic culture that negatively impacts the overall development of that region, that nation, and even humanity. Conversely, a society composed of civilized, benevolent individuals who always know how to love, share, and forgive will be a livable society with a healthy, peaceful cultural environment. To create money, one must first create value. Because we all know that money is used to exchange material goods, products, and services, and they are valued at a sum corresponding to their worth. Whether an intangible or tangible product or service, it carries its own value. Each person in the team also plays a unique role and creates unique value based on a common understanding of the value system. When a brand wants to expand its territory beyond commercial objectives, it also carries the goal of creating value for that land. This could be fostering economic development, improving the lives of the people, or advancing that country or territory. They might also bring better, more optimized utility services to the people there. There's a well-known business story that many of us have heard, the story of selling shoes in Africa. The story goes that two shoe businesses went to Africa to survey the market. The first company decided not to do business there, believing that the locals habitually went barefoot, so no one would buy shoes. Conversely, the second company saw this as a good business opportunity with a market full of potential, as no other company had yet tapped into it. They began to research the market thoroughly, understand the needs and habits of the people, and plan to produce the most suitable products, providing utility to the people at an appropriate price, and they succeeded in becoming the market leader in shoes there. Thus, when a business only thinks about selling goods to gain profit without caring about the buyer's benefit, they will fail from the start. But when they think about what benefits they will bring to customers and how to achieve that, they have already secured their victory. *3. Supply chain. A supply chain is a system of organizations, people, activities, information, and resources that ensures the delivery of a product from the supplier to the consumer. It is a condition for ensuring the smooth and continuous operation of a business or organization without interruption or disruption. If the supply chain operates disjointedly, without connection, it will create inefficiencies and disadvantages. For example, if a business produces massively without a market for its products, it leads to oversupply, wasted raw materials and costs, and failure to recover capital. Conversely, if a market is found but there is no product supply or the supply cannot meet demand, business efficiency will not be achieved either. Therefore, the construction of a supply chain must be comprehensively and consistently completed, balancing all links such as production, transportation, distribution, marketing, sales, and customer service. There are many different supply chain models, from simple to complex. We can choose a supply chain model that suits the specific characteristics of the product and the business objectives. However, we also need to understand that the supply chain is a critical factor in business. It is the means to connect the business with the market, ensuring the maintenance and increase of revenue and the stable development of the business. Therefore, when choosing a supply chain, it is essential to ensure sustainability and strong linkages between its components, avoiding breakdowns that lead to a loss of control for the entire system. SBO is a young company that specializes in intellectual products and knowledge, so choosing a supply chain is crucial for its success. Bringing essential physical products to market is already difficult. Bringing books, a product many consider non-essential, to users is even harder. So, how to choose a supply chain that effectively reaches customers is not cumbersome in distribution and management, saves costs, and maximizes profits. The 7S model was born, applied, and has proven its effectiveness. The factor of social benefit is placed at the center, so all business activities are social in nature. In particular, the unique characteristic of books, being specialized intellectual or individual artistic works, might seem to appeal to a niche readership, but they have been popularized to become a trend that promotes a reading culture. Imagine a bestseller that can attract millions of readers across all eras, creating new ideological trends, contributing to changing perceptions, and transforming the face of a society. To achieve this, the business must know how to create the means. Many people in society do not consider books an essential product in life, so they do not develop a reading habit, and thus there is no demand. But when books become an important means to connect them to the world, to modern society, to those around them, and to their own souls, when books become a guide to help them find the true meaning of life, then clearly, reading becomes an essential need. And if they do not read books, they themselves are gradually falling behind the society outside. This is the solution-oriented approach in business. Surplus value is not merely profit for the business. More importantly, the business must create surplus value for the customer. This might sound illogical because historically, customers have always been the ones bringing revenue and profit to businesses. But this does not mean that only the business benefits from a transaction. A purchase is an exchange of benefits. Each product has a value equivalent to its price. And one way or another, whether a lot or a little, it brings benefit to the customer. Therefore, pay attention to the surplus value you bring to your customers. If you want customers to love and stay with you long-term, always create value that is greater than the price, instead of trying to reduce costs by reducing value or finding ways to make value merely match the price. A book bought for $10, but treasured, preserved, and passed down through generations, surely has more value, creating greater surplus value than a fashionable dress bought for $100 that becomes outdated soon after. Economically, selling the fashionable dress might bring more profit to the business. However, from a social perspective, it doesn't bring much benefit and may even create some other negative consequences. In fact, modern society contains many similar artificial values that serve superficial spiritual needs, such as living a virtual life. These empty forms cause people to live hastily without valuing fundamental principles like ethics, humanity, humility, and forgiveness. Similar to creating surplus value, sharing value is also an important link to maintaining the supply chain. Each individual, each department, each stakeholder needs to have their benefits ensured and harmonized, receiving value commensurate with their contributions. Value, when shared, does not diminish, but instead multiplies. Therefore, the mission of a genuine business always includes the element of sharing value. The storytelling aspect helps reinforce authenticity, making sales easier and more natural, because each story is a real, clear, authentic, and vivid illustration. Just like the supply chain, the system aspect is considered the backbone of the business. It creates market coverage. It establishes a position to define the brand. It becomes a symbol of a region or territory. However, to build such a macro system requires a long process with significant investment in human and material resources. Therefore, an intelligent business knows how to combine resources to create a soft macro system with extensive coverage that is also very compact and flexible. Each customer is not merely a buyer, but also a distributor. Each family becomes a bookstore, and the user themselves becomes the marketing and communication channel for the product. At the same time, the system is not limited to physical geographical scope, but is also expanded into digital space, leveraging internet infrastructure and digital technology to create online sales channels. Online product versions are suitable for all audiences, conditions, and purchasing methods. The most important difference between brands, and also what makes a brand successful, is its service. There's a humorous analogy that the lower you bow, the easier it is to get into a customer's pocket. In reality, the more sincere and respectful our service attitude, the easier it is to win the customer's goodwill, and sales become easier. The service attitude also reflects the vision of the business or its leader. If they truly want their business to grow and be sustainable, and want to contribute to society, they will value customers, constantly incorporating feedback to satisfy customers more each day. Conversely, if the business is built merely as a front for other activities or purposes, they will not pay much attention to customer feelings. In summary, each business and individual can choose different methods and models to suit their specific conditions, but they must still ensure basic criteria based on universal laws. In this, creating value and benefiting society must be prioritized over the interests of oneself or the business. *4. Business linkage. Each business operates differently. Within the same industry or across different fields, they can choose to become rivals, creating fierce competition in the marketplace to dominate for a certain period. But they can also choose a smarter approach, collaborating, linking up to create strength. The stronger the linkage, the greater the power it generates. Just like individuals, each person possesses unique talents and advantages, but no one is perfect. However, when cooperating with other individuals, they create collective strength. Let's take the example of producing and selling a specific product, cars. If one company handles production, marketing, sales, and customer service, it would require many employees and managers in each different area. Managing and organizing such a cumbersome organizational structure would be a significant challenge, affecting progress, time, and causing waste for the company. However, if the company links with other businesses, with each company taking on a specialized role. For example, labor is provided by a human resource supply company, communication and marketing strategies are entrusted to a media company, sales are handled by a sales consulting company, and customer service is transferred to a company specializing in customer care services. In this way, the company saves time and costs for these activities to focus on production. Similarly, these specialized service providers also simultaneously cooperate and provide services to many different partners. This helps each business focus on its area of expertise, perfecting and developing faster and more powerfully. When businesses collaborate, they create a large-scale operating system that better and more fully meets customer needs. *5. Privatization or equitization. Privatization or equitization is an inevitable trend because it is a way for businesses to operate effectively. Especially when a business operates on a large scale, equitization helps distribute the rights and responsibilities of each shareholder evenly, creating motivation and maximizing the capabilities of each individual and department, fostering uniform and strong development. All share a common direction and purpose because responsibility is linked to benefits. *6. Finding a great mentor. Behind the success of an individual, an organization, or a business, there is always the role of a mentor, advisor, coach, or initiator who guides and directs. Without a teacher, you cannot succeed. That is a truth. However, sometimes we do not perceive the role of a mentor, or sometimes we cannot avoid self-deception about our own abilities and thus underestimate the role of a guide. The person who can lead us on our path must be someone who has walked that path before, who clearly understands the directions and obstacles awaiting us. A mentor must be someone who accompanies and stands by us every day, overcoming difficulties with us. Not someone who sits idly giving orders, like a coach on the field who trains with players every day, is present on the field to direct each game, and ties their own responsibilities and benefits to their students. A mentor who possesses all the elements of heart, talent, intellect, and virtue will have far-reaching vision, capable of offering wise, feasible directions that align with natural and social laws. *7. Alliance. An alliance is a linkage, coordination, and mutual support to serve a common purpose, and is usually understood on a large scale at national, international levels, or among powerful empires. When a business has developed and grown to a certain extent, it creates strong, firm, and long-lasting linkages. At this point, their purpose and role also gradually expand. Their interests, responsibilities, and roles become intertwined with the interests of the nation, the people, the world, and humanity. Therefore, forming alliances helps them multiply their strength exponentially, spreading their value and brand rapidly across multinational or global scales. Alliances bring benefits to all parties and to the community and society. *8. Helping and serving. The strong are those who can uplift others on their shoulders, not those who trample on others. The ultimate purpose of success is to create value, serve, and contribute, leaving one's mark on this life. Because each of us is born into this world not just to die, not just to live our own life. We are born and nurtured by our parents, and we grow up thanks to society. Any career or fame we achieve is also thanks to society's recognition. And one thing is certain. When successful, the first thing we think of is repaying our parents, caring for our children, and then our loved ones. Next is showing gratitude to our mentors, benefactors, and those who helped us. More broadly, it extends to our homeland and country. We humans all inherently possess the instincts of gratitude, love, and compassion. Therefore, the more successful and outstanding people are, the more deeply they understand this, and they see service and contribution as inevitable, as a mission, and as the ultimate purpose of life. This is both a natural law and a universal social law. So, to succeed, we must be grateful, and the more grateful we are, the more successful we will become. There is a success formula that many have applied effectively, but not all of us know it. Help others achieve what you want to achieve. At first glance, this might seem somewhat illogical because if we haven't achieved what we want, how can we help others? There is a saying often quoted to the effect that, "Don't waste your time chasing a horse. Spend that time tending your pasture. By spring, a whole herd of fat horses will come for you to choose from." Indeed, when we pour our hearts into what we do and infuse it with good intentions and purposes for others, good things will come to us. All resources will come. *9. The money game asterisk. It's a reality that most people who lack money often struggle with earning it and view it as a battle. This battle only ends when they no longer have the strength to fight. Conversely, wealthy people view making money as a game and controlling cash flow as they desire is their pleasure. There's a significant difference in the mindset of these two groups. Those who view earning money as a battle are in that battle. They can only see what's happening closest to them and deal with the most urgent situations. Conversely, those who view earning money as a game are in a higher position. They are observing and controlling. We should understand that all games in this world are simulated from reality. And playing games is also a way to practice and develop skills. Just as children play make-believe battles to develop courage, bravery, and leadership. The game of blind man's bluff trains reflexes and judgment. So, earning money and creating money should also be practiced from a young age or before we embark on this career. Because creating money is a game that requires many composite skills, from observation, calculation, logical thinking, seizing opportunities, making decisions, and taking action. Besides knowledge, skills, and rationality, it also requires the ability to manage emotions and balance one's psychological state. Therefore, we need to set up or participate in a money game to practice these skills and cultivate the mindset of a controller. This is a crucial factor for us to conquer our goals in the real-world pursuit of money. Chapter 5, Winning the Money Game asterisk. Like all games in this world, there is an important and immutable principle. Know yourself and know your enemy, and you will win 100 battles. The same applies to the money game. When we clearly understand the nature of money, the laws of cash flow, and the role of money, we will know what to learn and what to do to create money, and we will win the game. Conversely, if we don't clearly understand what is happening and just leave home every day to make money, we will forever be its slave. To win the money game, let's reflect on why money is created, what money is created for, because that very purpose will be the condition for it to continue to multiply. Money is inherently created from exchange and interaction in society. It helps people free up labor, helping society develop and become more civilized. Therefore, actions that benefit the country and the people are advantageous to the community and society, and promote the upward development of society will certainly generate money and long-lasting money. Conversely, selfish actions that serve individuals but harm the nation, the people, or humanity will sooner or later incur a price. Money is a great invention of humanity. Currency is the culture of each nation, and therefore it contributes to the development of human culture and national culture. Actions that help preserve, promote, develop, and raise the cultural and intellectual standards for humanity, nations, and peoples will certainly generate money. Money is created by human intellect, labor, and time, so anything that creates intellect, health, and saves time will generate money. In short, these are the sources that generate money. When we want to transform anything into money, let's turn it into a source of money. The larger the source, the more money, and conversely, the more time it takes to build and prepare. We see the growth of Apple or Microsoft not just because they create new technology products that are purely entertaining, but also because they advance human civilization faster, saving time and freeing up labor. We must admit that the technology they create is a solution applied to many industries worldwide, connecting everywhere at all times. All successful businesses in this world contribute or create social value, benefiting the community, at least at that time. The more value they create, the more money they receive. This is the true key to success. The money game is a game that everyone in this society must experience. Therefore, let's agree that those who are educated, knowledgeable, and trained will certainly achieve better and more deserving results instead of waiting for luck. Conclusion: transforming everything into money is a topic that most people in society care about. However, each perspective will create different formulas. Each formula will use different resources and materials. Applying natural and social laws based on the principle of serving society will help us determine a long-term direction, identify money sources to design appropriate cash flow, and create a game for practicing and developing money-making skills. This will shorten time, save effort, and bring optimal efficiency for individuals and businesses. I look forward to meeting you in Game Make Money, a tool to help you experience financial thinking, as well as the thinking behind creating money and your own cash flow. This book, Transforming Everything into Money, may not be the only method, but it has been proven by the success of Xbox, a young business that achieved significant results in a short period. I hope the book will be a useful suggestion, a source of inspiration for you to gain a new perspective, a direction, and a wise decision. We have just explored some profound thoughts from Transforming Everything into Money by Nguyen An Dung. I hope the book has given you a new perspective, not just on how to make money, but also on how to discover the value of your own life.